All right. So, what branch of service were you in?
United States Navy and the Air Force.
What were your dates of service?
In the Navy, I was in from November 1947 till December the 1st of 1955.
And were you drafted or enlisted?
No, I enlisted. The Air Force I was in from 1956 to 1960.
How old were you?
I enlisted at 17.
What type of work did you perform while in service?
While in the service, I repaired and made sure all the guns were MD1s, A5s. That's 20 millimeter, and then on the ships, made sure all the directors that worked to aim the guns and whatnot that took care of the guns. The gunner's mates fired them. We positioned them. The fire control technician positioned them from the directors.
Did you request your specific job?
The specific job. It was to maintain the directors in the and on the Air Force it was maintain the guns that were in there, kept them in firing order, kept them greased or oiled, or made sure that they fired and maintained them so that they were operative. And in the Navy, it was like I said, it was the directors that you maintain those were mainly operated by more or less like radar. You position them just like the kids do with their little cars. It's basically the same thing.
Where did you serve?
I always everything I served during the Navy was from San Diego was my home port. San Diego was all Far East, or all in Japan, Far West, or whatever they want to call it. But it was all we went to I think as I recall, we were in all the islands of China, Japan, Korea, Indochina, and all those in there. We went when I first went in, we went in up to Juneau, Alaska, from San Diego to take newly cadets that they had in Annapolis that were going to be officers, and we took them up there training along the coast to Juneau.
What were the names of your ships?
The what?
The names of your ships?
The first ship was the USS Astoria. It was CL-90 light cruiser. The second ship was LSD-4. That was a landing ship dock, to where we could take the fantail and put it down below the water. We could run small boats for repair or transport up into the well. And the last ship I was on was the USS Montrose, APA-212, and it was a transport troop ship. We took people from, well, that's a different story. But during Korea, we picked up the soldiers that in different bases where they were not bases, but firing lines were there. I brought them to the ship. We took them on R&R, dropped them off, picked them up, brought them back. We'd done that 2 or 3 times, and then we, at the end of the Korean War, we took people that were in French Indochina or Vietnam today. From Haiphong, Indochina, we transported them down to Saigon, Indochina, well, Vietnam it now, and to get them away from the communists. And, so we made about 3 trips, I think, as I recall, the French would bring them out in their small boats. They'd load up the people on the dock and bring them to the ship. We loaded them up on the ship, and then it took us about three days, I think it was, to go down to Saigon. So we fed them. We kept them aboard ship, give them a place to sleep and whatnot. In my book there of the ship, there has a section in there of the Passage to Freedom, that's what it was called.
What were the hours that you worked?
Our regular hours, well, we worked 24 hours when we were at sea. Would not exactly work, but we were on call. But you usually just worked during the day. If you didn't have duty stations or watches that you had stood by, during the day you went to work at 8 o'clock of the morning after breakfast, and you worked till 1600, 4 o'clock you were off. So actually you just worked about 8 hours, but if you were on watch and you had a watch you had to stand, it was 4 hours each watch.
What did you do with your free time?
At sea?
Yeah.
When we were at sea, we played cards or basically studied or stuff like that.
What kinds of uniforms were issued to you?
We had 3 different types. We had a dress blues, and they had all the stripes and the decorative on their uniform on the blouse, like the one that's right outside the door. Mm-hmm. And we had undress blues. They were blues. They were wool. I think they were wool anyway. The undress blues had no white stripes or anything. They only had your rank on the arm. And then we got issued dungarees, and that's what we wore when we worked during work hours. So basically, it's 3 different. Oh, and then we were issued also whites for in the summertime, and they were just plain white uniforms, and then you had your rank and everything on you. They had nothing on the bottom of the sleeves like the blue did.
What was the weather like?
Basically, the weather wasn't too bad. A couple times going over from San Diego to Japan or to Hawaii. A couple times we run into a little rough weather, but the only time we really had bad weather that I was on we were taking over a small landing ship to give to the Japanese for their fishing fleet. Excuse me. And we were from San Diego, we took it to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii on into Yokosuka, Japan. Well, from Hawaii into Yokosuka, we were 30 days late coming. They had us lost at sea for 30 days. So we ran into a typhoon, and when you was up in the wheelhouse and you looked down, you couldn't see the water. You could see it all around, but you couldn't see it under the ship. The waves were that high, and it was pretty bad, but we survived.
What war did you serve during?
The Korean War.
What was your first experience in a foreign country, and what was your first impression?
Oh boy, that was when we went to, when I first got out of boot camp, we went aboard ship, we were assigned our divisions and what we were going to do, and we went to Japan. Went over to Japan. The first trip we made when we got out of boot camp, we went to Juneau, Alaska, and that was with the midshipmen, they would call. They were in Annapolis and they were getting training. Then the second time we went to sea, we went over to Japan. It was frightening at first. The people have in Japan at that time, the places were, the streets and the cities were dirty. They weren't cleaned up, and people didn't what do I want to say? It was an experience because they had what they call bathhouse. They didn't have bathrooms in their places of residence. There had a community bathhouse, and they would all go together and when they wanted to take a bath or a shower, I guess, you know, and men, women, children, everything was in the bath. Take a bath together. That's an experience. That's something you don't see in the United States, but that was there. And other than that, the people didn't like us. They didn't like us because of the war. This was right after the war, a couple of years. As a rule, the second time we went back, I got a little better as we went back because we knew spots and the places to go to where you could hold a conversation with the people. At first, it was pretty hard to understand them if you didn't know Japanese.
How big was your ship?
Oh boy, I want to say it's about 190. It was big. Just as an estimate, I'm gonna say the cruiser itself, when I was on, was the length of a football field, probably 100 yards. That would be about 300 feet. I think that's about what it was. And it was across about 90 feet or more. And the LSD was a little shorter, probably wasn't as long as a cruiser, and then the APA was along too. It was about the same size as a cruiser, so they were pretty big. I think as far as the housing the people, I think the cruiser housed, or there were assigned, I'd say somewhere around 2,000 people, 2,000 sailors aboard. And on the LSD, I'm just guessing at these figures because I don't know them for sure. But I'd say on the LSD there was maybe 500. That was down. And then on the APA we had probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 sailors or a little more. That's just my rough.
What did you do when you went on leave?
Usually just went home and seen my relatives, seen the folks.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes, I do. It was kind of sad, but yet kind of relieved.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
After I was out, I looked for a job. Got work for at the telephone, Mountain States Telephone and Telegraph Company in Helena, Montana. And I worked for them for 6 months, and I joined the Air Force. And after they got out of the Air Force, then I worked in Lincoln for a while, and then I went to work in the slaughterhouses of cows and hogs, and then I got into meat inspection, and I retired from there.
Did you join a veterans organization?
The VFW.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
No, not really. It's been a joy. It's kind of an honor, to be truthful with you. It's to think that the school would do that. I'm glad they did. It's really brings back a lot of memories.